Hello again and welcome back to Seven Rivers Talk. I'm Bob Earl and my guest today is Dan Kapanke, who is running for the 3rd District Congressional post. And nice to have you with us, Dan. And I have to put this little PSA in here before we get on to the expansion of the health bill and its dire circumstances, I think. And that's just to remind all of you that there's a meet and greet reception going on Tuesday night from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the Radisson. This is for meet and greet for Mark Newman, who is also running for governor. So mark that down as well. And as you know, we're here every Monday evening at 5:30 and at 6:30 on Tuesday mornings if you can roust out at that time. We're talking about, with Dan Kapanke, about the health bill. And you mentioned some of the things that really concern you. I think overall, the thing that concerns me is that in looking at the health bill analysis, it completely usurps our fundamental freedoms. I mean, it takes away a lot of our choices that we can make now, but which we can't make later, such as if you don't care to carry insurance, you'll be taxed. Actually, it'll be a fine. And you know, we won't have a choice of competitive insurance companies, and the whole issue of freedom and over control by a government enters into this bill. It's a control bill.
Correct. And if you look at countries that have gone to a nationalized health plan, we're able to see the problems that they've had. And apparently, people in Washington haven't learned enough about Canada and Great Britain and other countries that have gone this route and the problems that have prevailed because of it. I want to tie this healthcare thing in a little bit, Bob, to the jobs, which I talked as number one. And the economy. And just think about the last year or 14 months when Congress has been just so engulfed in this whole process of trying to get health care reform. In the meantime, our economy is floundering. People are concerned about jobs, and they're spending all their energy, all of their time on health care. And really, it's the economy and its jobs. That's number one, not health care. And if you look at the polls, depending on which one you're looking at, the people by and large don't want this. Up to 75% in one poll I just saw, 75% of the people say, take that health care bill, that's 2,300 to 2,500 pages, or we don't know how many pages it's going to be because we don't know what the bill looks like yet, and take that thing and throw it in the garbage can. And let's take a clean piece of paper and let's address some of the points that we really can't afford right now, like tort reform. They're not talking about tort reform. Let's talk about reimbursement disparity for Medicare, Midwest versus East Coast and West Coast. I'm told that if we could address those two issues, we could save 25 to 30% right here in the La Crosse area in the Midwest on our health care costs. So they're not addressing those issues. So let's take the big bill, let's throw it away, let's bring in 5 Republicans, let's bring in 5 Democrats and the president, and let's hash out 2 or 3 points that we can afford now.
And actually, the current Congressman, Ron Kind, I think, has he voted for all of President Obama's bills? Does he support the health bill?
He supports the health bill. He's voted in favor of it last November. And again, I was talking about being accountable, being hired by the people. If we go back to August of 2009, that's when President Obama wanted this health care bill passed. He says, we can get this done by August. Well, he had the votes in the Senate. He had the votes in the House. The thing that stopped it was the people out here. The people rose up and said, wait a minute. In the meantime, of course, unfortunately, Senator Kennedy passed on, and now they don't have that 60 vote that they need. But it's the people out here, and he was out here. Congressman Kind was out here. He had 3 or 4 healthcare town hall meetings, and resoundingly, the people said, no, don't do this. We don't want this. And what did Congressman Kind do? He went to Washington, voted yes.
Right. So as a matter of fact, as an opponent and as a candidate in opposition, you've got some good foundations there to talk about relative to why you should win versus why Ron Kind should stay in office. And we'll have Ron Kind on the air here eventually down the road as well.
Sure.
Well, let's put the health bill here for a moment. We'd like to throw it out. But your next issue.
Well, again, the health care is 3 maybe or 2. Jobs is number 1. The economy, we've talked about that. That's number 1. And then the other issue that people are really concerned about out here is the massive spending that's taking place in Washington. They max out one credit card, the American Express card, if you will, and then they go get a MasterCard and start maxing out that. They raise the debt from $12.4 trillion recently to $14.3 trillion. That's $1.9 trillion. They just want to keep spending money. And then they passed this bill that said pay as you go, and right after they passed that bill, they extended benefits for unemployment that cost like $10 billion. And Senator Bunning stood up and said, "Hey, wait a minute, how are we going to pay for this?"
Right.
And he was shot down. But there's fiscal responsibility has got to take place in Washington, or where are we going to be?
You know, the distinguishing point, we would hope, would be between the Democrats and the Republicans is that the Republicans would have less government, cut the spending, lower taxes. A criticism of that, which would come from the center or the left side, is that, well, when the Republicans are in office, you know, they spent too. So how do you address that, Dan?
Well, you know, there's a valid point there. You know, in the previous 8 years before President Obama, we did enlarge government, and my answer to that would be elect new Republicans.
Yeah.
You know, people ask me, you know, what am I going to do as one person, a new person in Washington? And I'll say, I'm not going to be alone. The class of 2010 in the House is going to be 30, 40, 50, 60 of us. We don't know. Depends on what they do in Washington between now and November 2nd.
Right.
So there's going to be a whole bunch of us, and we're going to have this new class with a new mindset. And then in 2012, we'll have another new class, and we'll have our numbers, and we'll start peeling back and turning back this government that has gone kind of amok, if you will, back to the people.
It's called the yin and the yang.
There you go. That sounds
exactly.
That sounds
I'm talking with Dan Kapanke, who is running for Congress in the 3rd District, and I'll be back with you again in just a moment with Dan.